Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the afternoon class. So we will continue from last time. Actually, this is the fourth session. Okay, so we hope to continue every week until the end of the rain retreat. So altogether, at least we should be able to get up to at least 12 lectures. And I hope by the end of this, series of Dhamma talks, you have a better understanding about the teaching of the Buddha and the monastic trainings, and perhaps something else that I can add on to you during this rain retreat. So last week we talked about the Buddha biography, the story of the Buddha himself, and I mentioned at least 2 books, and I want you to find time to read by yourself. The first book is The Buddha and His Teaching. This book, okay, The Buddha and His Teaching. This is a very good book with rich information about the story of the Buddha himself and about the teaching of the Buddha. Okay, it's quite thick. It's old book, but I found this book very easy to read and enjoyable. Okay, and this one is the Buddha short biography from John Strong. This is one of the, to me, this is one of the must-read book about the Buddha biography. It's not too thick, but it has a very detailed information about the place, the people, the name, the number that involved with the Buddha life. This is a good one. And this one is early Buddhist Discourse, okay, by Professor John Holder. Okay, this professor select the early Buddhist teaching, he put into one book. Okay, there are many teachings of the Buddha in the Buddhist scripture. Okay, but this happened to be only the collection of the teaching that consider authentic. It's early Buddhism. Okay, so it's a nice collection, interesting book. Today we will move on to the core teaching of the Buddha. Last time we talked about after the Buddha passed away, right? So we talked about Buddhism equal the Dhamma plus the Vinaya. Buddhism equal Dhamma and Vinaya. Okay, the Dhamma is the teaching of the Buddha. Okay, the teaching. The Vinaya is the monastic code. Okay, or rules that we need to follow. So 2 of these become Buddhism after the Buddha passed away. He did not select anyone to in charge of his teaching or his doctrine or his religions. So only 2 of these. The question is, there are so many teachings of the Buddha, okay, that put together in something called the Tipitaka or the scripture in Tipitaka. So many teachings that kept here. So in Thai version there are 8 of these, okay, and there are 25 of these. 8 books about Vinaya and 25 books about the teaching, and another 12 books for Abhidhamma, which we will not cover on that part. So 3 baskets, Tipitaka means 3 baskets. 3 baskets composed of the Dhamma or the Sutra, the Vinaya and the Abhidhamma. So 3 of them. But we will focus on this particular basket for now, the teaching of the Buddha. Okay, it's called the Sutra Pitaka. The question is, there are 25 of them in Theravada Buddhism. But if you're talking about Mahayana or Vajrayana, which is Tibetan Buddhism, there are more than this. There are hundreds of them. So many teachings that kept in this basket in different schools of Buddhism. If let's say you know nothing about Buddhism and you want to study Buddhism, where would you start? Okay, I'm new. I just born in this world and I want to study religions of the world, Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism. So now you start from Buddhism first. Where would you start to learn about Buddhism? You have to have this picture clear. And now you a Westerner or you foreigner, you become a monk. You are going to embark on this spiritual journey, which we have Buddha as our teacher. So we need to know where should we start to get to know his teaching. The Monastic Code, okay, this is one basket, 8 books about rules, about what monks can do, what monks cannot do. So many of them, including manners. How do you dress? What is the right way to dress? How do you treat your robes? How do you talk to the lay people, how you walk, how you go arms round, how to deal with money. A lot of things put in this basket. So 8 books. There are a lot that we need to learn. Okay, but for now, just if anything that you're not sure, you just ask. Can I do this? Can I do that? Okay, but whenever you have time, I think the first responsibility for you as a newly ordained monk, you must know what rules that you have to follow. What can you do? What you cannot do? What should you do? What should you not do? So back to the question, where should we start if we know nothing about Buddhism? Okay, so I'm going to give you some idea. At least 4 places I want you to pay attention. In fact, I think this approach can be used for any religion that you want to study. The first one, the founder. The founder means what? You study the story of the Buddha or the religious founder. Okay, in this case, first thing you should know, the background of Prince Siddhartha or the background of the Buddha by getting to, his biography. Okay, get to the books about who he was, what did he do, why he decided to ordain or renounce the world, what did he discover. Okay, and this is very important because some religious founder is not human being, it's God, and there is a messenger, right? There's a man, human being who received the message from God and passed that message on to humankind, to people. So you have to know that too. Who is that person? What is his background? Who is his father's mother? Where did he live? How did he grow up? Get to know the context. So you have some idea how that particular religion, started. Okay. So we have talked about this last session, about the religious founder or the Buddha himself or the biography of the Buddha. And the second one, I would suggest you to start off with the first teaching. The first teaching. First teaching is very important. First teaching usually happen after he discovers something, or we call in Buddhism we call enlightenment. So after the Buddha enlightenment, he locate his student, someone that he want to share that knowledge. So he found the 5 ascetic or Panchavakkhya, right? The 5 monks. So he shared with them his discover or the first teaching, which is kept in the sutra called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. And the third one, okay, is the last teaching. The last teaching also important. Before the Buddha passed away, what did he teach? What was his final teaching? So that means he summarized everything that he have taught in 45 years, okay, before he passed away. So the last teaching considered is very crucial teaching. In fact, this is the longest teaching in the Buddhist Sutra. Mahaparinibbana Sutra is the longest one. We haven't got to that yet, okay? And number 4, the scripture. In order for us to understand Buddhism, not only we know the story of the Buddha, we know his first teaching, we know his last teaching, and we need to know how the Buddhist scripture get developed over time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any clear idea how did his teaching get into the writing format. Because back then, the only method that they used, to teach the Dhamma from one teacher to student, from student to another student, is through verbal. Okay, just memorize and talk, when shared to other verbally. They only talk. There was no books, no pen to write down. So people memorize and people pass on by talking, okay, verbally. So if we understand how Buddhist scripture get developed, then it helps us to have a better understanding, okay, when we study Buddhism. Which sutra come first, which sutra come last, and how the Buddhist structure get organized. So it's going to help us to understand, okay, the whole idea, how these religions get created. Okay? And to me, I would like to add on, 2 more things. In fact, the second and the third is also important. The first teaching, the second teaching, and the third teaching. To me, this is the must read or the must learn. The first 3 teaching of the Buddha, okay, and eventually the last teaching. Okay, this is the longest. You can save this for the last study, but for the first teaching, second teaching, and the third teaching, okay, to me is the best place to start off with to get to know Buddhism. Because once you get to the third teaching of the Buddha, you have some idea about the Buddha thinking, about his view of life, about his knowledge, about his discovery in the first three teachings. A lot of things happen during that first three teachings. And today we will look deeper into the first teaching. We will get to know, okay, something called the Four Noble Truths, and then we will hopefully to finish the first Noble Truth together. So after the Buddha enlightenment, okay, I'll take you back. So when you study Buddhism or Buddhist scripture, every time it's recommended for you to imagine yourself back to the time of the Buddha. Vividly, if we talk about the Buddha, let's say this picture. Okay, the Buddha was, share his first teaching, okay, with the first 5 students. So you imagine yourself sitting there with them, try to understand, the context, try to understand what the Buddha actually teach. Okay, it helps you to have a better understanding once you imagine yourself, in that situation. So the Buddha enlightenment over there. After he enlightenment, he spent 7 weeks reflect on his discovery, what it was, how did it happen. At the end of the 7 weeks, he was thinking of sharing this knowledge to others. However, he realized that his discovery was so profound, it's so deep. Maybe not many people would understand. So he kind of reluctant to teach. Well, eventually, he decided, okay, there may be someone who's smart enough to understand my teaching. Finally, he decided, okay, I will teach. And that's why he started locate someone who, deserve his first teaching. So he was thinking of his first 2 teachers, first 2 ascetic, Aladaka and Uddaka ascetic. It's too bad that both of them dying, they passed away. So he was thinking of someone else, which happened to be these 5 ascetic. These 5 ascetic used to take care of him while he was practicing self-mortification, torture himself for 6 years. So he located them and he found them and he started sharing his knowledge with them for the first time. So this first teaching is called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. This one, okay, it's called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. Sutra means discourse or teaching. The first teaching, this is the name of the teaching. And like I said, the first teaching is very important. That means the Buddha summarized what he discovered from his enlightenment to share with these first 5 students for the first time. So he summarized his own knowledge and shared with these 5 people. And this teaching laid out a framework for the rest of his teaching in 45 years of his life. It starts from this teaching. Let's take a look at the sutra itself. Okay? In this particular sutra, you have to read very carefully because there is no explanation in the sutra itself. It's not very long. So what he said, Bhikkhu, there are 2 extremes should not be followed by one who has gone forth. Gone forth means ordination. People who ordain, there are 2 things that you should avoid. The first one is sensual pleasure. Okay? And the second one is self-mortification. And the last one, what he introduced is the middle way. There are 3 keywords here: sensual pleasure, self-mortification, and the middle way. And lastly, he explained about the middle way. He said, which give rise to vision, this one, which give rise to knowledge, this one, and which leads to peace and super knowledge and enlightenment, and finally you arrive something called Nibbana. That's it, 1 paragraph. This is the summary of the Buddha discovery or the Buddha knowledge that he shared with his first student. And at the end of this teaching, one of the ascetic has attained, Sodapatthana, which means he has achieved the first level of enlightenment just by listening to the first teaching from the Buddha. Okay, Anya Kontanya. What do you see from this particular sutra? Anything come to your mind? anything new to you, or anything that you feel like, okay, I have some idea or I have no idea. This is very profound. This is a core concept that the Buddha actually specifically explained to these 5 monks. And like I said, he did not share detail, because these 5 ascetics, they were good meditators. They have been practicing meditation for a long time, even before Prince Siddhartha left the palace. They're a very smart group of people. Okay, to give you a summary and a better understanding, back then there were so many people who practiced spiritual development, and there are many ways of doing that. There were 2 well-known practices that people believe that they can reach full liberation. The first one is called sensual pleasure. This is the first one. And the second one is called self-mortification. There are 2 ways. Some people follow the first way, the first path, by allow themselves to enjoy sensual pleasure, whatever it is. They believe that life is so short, just enjoy. And at the end of that enjoyment, you have understanding about life, you get bored of enjoyment, and then you can let go. People look at that direction. So they just allow themselves to be indulged in sensual pleasure, entertain themselves. And the second idea, self-mortification, this is opposite. People who follow this direction, they believe that, the soul or the mind is very pure and is kept in the body. The body, like the prison, the mind is in the prison. So what you have to do to free the mind or to liberate your own mind, you need to torture yourself, your physical body, as much as possible. Okay, don't follow whatever the mind wants to do. Okay, if you want to eat good food, don't eat it. If the mind wants you to sleep on the beautiful bed, don't follow it. Just do opposite, and eventually that mind will be liberated. So this is self-mortification in general idea. There are many other ways as well, but these 2 methods is very well known. Okay, and people follow it. Buddha himself, he also followed these 2 paths. Okay, he was born prince, he lived in the palace, so he fully understands what it means by sensual pleasure. He had everything that a man can have. So this path, he has gone to that, and he still don't want to stay in the palace. So this he understands. But this one, he don't understand. He never tried before. So he followed the 5 ascetics to torture himself for 6 years. And he found out that it did not take him anywhere. There is no liberation by following this path, by following either this one or this one. It takes you nowhere. So this is mundane state. Whether you follow this, the first or the second, it can only take you to the mundane state. You cannot go further. You cannot be fully liberated or free yourself, from suffering. You will be stuck here. The Buddha has tried both of them, and he discovered something different, and that thing is called the middle way. The middle way or the middle path. This path take you beyond this line to a supra-mundane state or nibbana. The only way that you can achieve nibbana is the middle way. And that's why he said, if you seek for spiritual liberation, these 2 things you should avoid. Sensual pleasure and self-mortification. Don't do it. I have gone through that. It doesn't take you anywhere. You need to follow something called the middle way. And the middle way itself points specifically to something called the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, which is one of the 4 Noble Truths. We will get to that later on during this series of Dhamma talk. Okay? So my question to you is, what is the middle way? How do you explain the middle way? Okay. So in the spiritual market back then, people never heard of the word middle way. There is no such thing exists until the Buddha discovered. People only know these two, sense pleasure and self-mortification. The Buddha discovered later, he introduced the new spiritual concept called the middle way. So the middle way, most people would say, well, middle means something in between. Between here and here. That meaning is very superficial. Very superficial. Okay, middle means in the center, not to left, not to right. Don't get trapped by that. The middle way is the new concept that never exists. Is this concept right above these two concepts? Not extreme in sense pleasure, not extreme in self-mortification, but it's above these two concepts. It's higher than that. But there is a reason why it's called the middle way. Hopefully we'll get to that. Anyway, at this point, what the Buddha mentioned in that scripture, he tried to explain to the five ascetics that, hey, you guys, what you have been practicing is wrong. It will take you nowhere. If you want to be fully liberated, stop doing this. Hey, listen to me. Follow my teaching. This is what I discovered. I call it the middle way or Majjhima Patipatha. And I have gone through this path, and it takes me all the way through something called Nibbana or the supramundane state. One of the monks, Anya Kontanya, he was able to understand the teaching. Okay, and eventually at the end of the first teaching, he achieved the first level of enlightenment. He become Sodaban or Sodapatana person. Okay, this is sense pleasure, this is self-mortification, and this is the middle way. Okay, the middle way will take you to Nibbana. Otherwise, if you follow those two, practice, you will end up at the mundane state. You don't go further. The Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta actually did explain how the Buddha get enlightenment. This sentence translates from the Pali word. If you remember when you chant Dhammacakka, you said, well, Chakhu Karani, Yana Karani, okay, Upasamaya, Sampodhaya, Abhinyaya, and Nippanaya. And that's what you said. And this is the translation. The path or the Eightfold Path, okay? In this path, before you can achieve the enlightenment, there are several things that will happen along the way of your practice. The first one, okay, Chakhu Karani means vision. Jnana Karani means knowledge. Okay. Upasamaya means calming. Abhinya means special knowledge or super knowledge. And Sampodhaya means awakening. And Nippanaya means Nibbana. And then you are enlightenment. This is the Buddha summary of what happened before he enlightenment. Chakhu Karani, vision. Okay. Jnana Karani, knowledge. Chakhu Karani, Jnana Karani, Abhinyaya. Abhinyaya is super knowledge. Sometimes we can use the word wisdom. So these three things will take you to Nibbana. So that means in Dhammacakka, the Buddha tried to explain the process of become enlightenment, and he explained what happened during that process. The first one, in order for someone to understand the nature of life, you need to have something called vision. Vision refers to the eye. If you have eye, you can see, right? Vision refers to eye that you can see. But in this case, it's not just human eye. It's the divine eye. It's the divine eye, inner eye. You see through your meditation, not your physical eye. Okay? And then once you see, you have knowledge. You see, you have knowledge. When you have knowledge, that knowledge become wisdom, super knowledge, abhinyaya. Once you have this wisdom, it takes you to the state of Nibbana, fully liberation. You understand things the way they are. You're not attached to anything. You understand the nature of things, which is everything is impermanent, everything is suffering, and everything is no self. In order for us to understand that, not just by contemplation, you need to actually see it from your divine eye, from your inner eye. Okay, this is very deep. Okay, in Dhammachakka, the Buddha moved on to explain the Four Noble Truths. Okay, if someone asks you what is the essence of the Dhammachakka or the first teaching of the Buddha, actually there are three things. Okay, the first thing is the concept of the middle way that we just learned, the middle way, and the second thing is the concept of the Four Noble Truths, which is this one, and the last thing that's very important, the Buddha emphasized on something called the Eightfold Path. Okay, or the Noble Eightfold Path, which is happen to be the number 4 of the Four Noble Truths. So the first Noble Truth is called Dukkha, this one. And today we will covering the first one, which is the Dukkha. Four Noble Truth is not just superficial concept of Buddhism. This is the heart and soul of Buddhist teaching. Most Buddhist people take Four Noble Truths very lightly. They just, oh, okay, I know there are 4 of them. I remember. You can test me. But the Buddha doesn't want us to just remember. Four Noble Truths should be the way of life. Because, remember, this Four Noble Truths is come from his enlightenment. What enlightenment means is he understands the true nature of life, that life, is suffering. And he discovered the cause of suffering. He also discovered the way to end suffering. That's why he put together this concept and make it for us to easier to understand, okay, easier for us to relate it to. When we talk about the Four Noble Truths, it's easy for us to relate it to because nature of life is suffering. And then he explained what suffering means, which we will get to that in a moment. So the first Noble Truth is Dukkha. The second Noble Truth is Samudaya, or of course the cause of suffering. And the third one is Nirodha in Pali, which is mean cessation or ending of suffering. And the last one, the Eightfold Path, the Magga, or the Eightfold Path. So the first two dealing with suffering and cause of suffering, and number 3 and number 4 dealing with how to end suffering. So if we can summarize the teaching of the Buddha, we can come down to he teach about suffering and he teach about ending suffering. That's it. And he said, that's all I teach. I teach about suffering and I teach about ending of suffering. So in general, when you learn the teaching of the Buddha, that teaching should help you to decrease your own suffering or eventually eradicate your own life suffering. Okay, that's the idea of learning the Dhamma. Why do we learn the Dhamma for? Because we don't know the nature of life. We don't aware that life is suffering. And when you run into that nature, you don't know what to do. Okay, let's say you're a business owner and all of a sudden business didn't go well. Your company may win, bankruptcy, or someone you love may leave you. All of a sudden, suffering happen, and then you have no idea how to deal with that. A lot of people have no idea how to deal with suffering in daily life, and that is why, okay, the teaching of the Buddha is very helpful, and is timeless. That means this medicine that exists 2,500 years ago, that can heal suffering for the people back then, can still be able to use and applicable for us nowadays. Okay, same suffering. So the concept of suffering is very important. And most Buddhist scholars, admire his discovery that, hey, for someone to understand and be able to observe that life is suffering, okay, that person has a very keen or very deep sense of observation. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to observe that life is suffering. Because on our daily basis, we encounter this thing already. We notice that people born, people get old, people dying every day. But we don't aware of this fact, and we don't even pay attention. But Buddha think oppositely. And that's why his discovery, he discovered what? He discovered the true nature of life. Okay, about his own life, about life of people around him, and about the nature around him. So he put together in this concept, the Four Noble Truths concept. The word Dukkha, which people take it very lightly. The word Dukkha is in Pali. What does Dukkha means? Usually, for the convenience way of understanding, okay, English translation usually translate to suffering or pain. That's it. That's what, when you read Buddhist Dhamma or the Buddha teaching, okay, people usually translate dukkha to suffering or pain. But this is not dukkha means. This is just one dimension of the word dukkha. Dukkha has much deeper idea beyond this word. So we have limitation on word that we can explain the word dukkha. Dukkha, the Pali word that used 2500 years ago, but this is English vocabulary. So don't take it lightly. The idea of dukkha has much deeper sense than just this. Okay, at least three concepts. The first one is impermanent. Impermanent. When you hear the word dukkha, this thing should come to your mind. Impermanent. Impermanent means dukkha. The second one is emptiness. See, have you ever thought of suffering as emptiness? Life is nothing but suffering. Life is nothing but emptiness. The more you study Dhamma, the more this keyword will make sense to you. But for now, you may like, I never heard of that. Okay, just keep the information in mind first. And the third idea of the word dukkha is insubstantiality. Insubstantiality. Every time you hear the word dukkha, you think of this one, impermanent. Okay? Impermanent, which we will get to that when we get to the second teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha explained more about impermanent. And second idea about the word dukkha is emptiness. Okay? There's nothing. There's no us. There's no I. There's no we. There's no you. There's no one. Life is just the composed of the five aggregation. It's the condition. That is why in the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha summarized, which we will get to that in a moment, that clinging on the five aggregate is suffering. Okay? So keep this information first, and then we'll go back to the text. And that is why many scholars, they don't translate the word dukkha. They just use the word dukkha when they explain the concept of Four Noble Truths. So don't be surprised, because the more you translate, the more the main meaning disappear. So you don't get the full sense of the word dukkha. You only stuck with the superficial meaning of dukkha, which means suffering. What is dukkha? Oh, dukkha means headache. Of course, that's one kind of dukkha, but it's not the dukkha that the Buddha emphasized. Okay? Dukkha means I have stomach ache. Dukkha means what? Physical pain. That's very simple. That's too simple. That's everyone knows. You don't need to be enlightenment to understand that kind of that kind of suffering, that kind of dukkha. Okay? So dukkha come with at least three concepts. So please keep this in mind. This is some of the word the people use this kind of word, try to explain the word dukkha. There is no one word that explains the whole meaning of the dukkha. And here is what the Buddha explained dukkha in the text, but not in the first teaching. He explained later in the later teaching. In some sutra, this one from the Mahasatipatthana Sutra, the Buddha explained what it means by dukkha, what it means by samudaya or cause of suffering, what it means by nirodha, what it means by the Eightfold Path in detail in that particular sutra. So today we will only cover the first noble truth, which is the dukkha, not the second, the third, and the fourth. Okay. So here is what is said in the text. If you look carefully, he said, "Well, what monks? This is the noble truth of suffering. The first one, birth is suffering. Second one, decay is suffering or disease. Okay, you getting old. And the third one, death is suffering. Okay, we chant morning, chanting every day. We kind of familiar with this term. Okay, and number four, sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, and mental pain, despair. These things are suffering. sorrow, you're feeling sad, lamentation or grief. Physical pain, we understand, headache, stomach aches. Mental pain, you're not feeling well, you feel worry. Despair, you lost your motivation, and these things considered suffering. And number 5, to be associated with unpleasant. Let's say you live in your friend, someone that you don't like, then you're not happy. This kind of feeling considered suffering. Okay? To be separate from what? From the pleasant is suffering. Let's say you lost your phone, you loved your phone so much, then you're suffering, you're unhappy. Someone you love passed away, you're suffering. You don't want it to be happening, but nothing you can do about it. Number 7, okay, not getting what one wants is suffering. You want to buy a new phone, you don't have enough money, you're suffering. You want a new house, again, not enough money, you're not happy. You don't get what you want. You want to be the top of your class, but somehow you cannot get there. Someone smarter than you, and then you are suffering. You lost that competition. In short, number 8, the Buddha said, the 5 aggregate of clinging are suffering. Okay, this is the most important one. In short means summary. If you remember nothing, remember number 8. The clinging on the 5 aggregate is suffering. We'll get to that in a moment. But if you look closer from number 1 to number 3, number 1 to number 3 is the physical suffering. Deal with physical, right? We born, we getting old, and we die. It's purely physical. But from number 4 to number 7, it's dealing with your feelings, your mental, your emotion. That's why some Buddhist scholars explain, there are 2 kinds of suffering. Physical suffering and mental suffering is come from here. But keep in mind that the teaching of the Buddha is supposed to be something very deep. Otherwise, it cannot be considered enlightenment. It's too simple. That is why number 8, you pay attention. Okay? The 5 aggregate of clinging are suffering. We'll get to that in a moment. But this picture is kind of summarized. 2 kinds of suffering. The first kind of suffering is a physical one. Okay? So we born, we getting old, and then eventually we die. This thing sometimes called a routine suffering. It happens to everyone, and we cannot escape that. And the second one, this one, okay, this is the first one. Second one is dealing with your emotion, your feelings. Sometimes we call occasional suffering. We don't have the same suffering in this particular section. Look at this man. He not only he getting old and eventually he die. Everyone walk on the same bridge, the same journey. You and me, every being that exists. We don't carry the same balloon, the same mental suffering. This man, he has many suffering. Okay, he just lost his job. Okay, and his company went bankruptcy. Okay, and his wife left him. They got divorced. He went to see the doctor. The doctor diagnosed that he has cancer. And when he come home, he noticed that his dog died. What a life! If you were him, what would you do? What kind of medicine can help you from this suffering? Many people commit suicide because of life suffering. When someone you love so much left you, don't know what to do, so you jump off the building, you hang yourself, kill yourself, because what? Too much suffering. Those who kill themselves, their mind is very crowded. They cannot think clearly. They cannot think it through. That's why they decided, I should end my life. So hope that I can free myself from this suffering. It's so much pain in my heart. So let's kill myself. Hope to, kind of run away from this suffering. But that thinking is not right thinking. Okay? How do you know that you will be able to free yourself if you die? You have no idea. But that moment is so much pain in your mind, in your heart, so you didn't know what to do. So you just grab the gun and shoot yourself and die. And leave the problem to people behind you. Business problem, kids problem, financial problem, just someone else take your suffering. So your job is ask yourself, how can I decrease my balloons, my mental suffering? Because you already have suffering in level 1. Eventually we die. But before you die, can you die in peace? Can you die with less suffering? Can you find a way to let go? And this is what most people stuck in life. They don't know the meaning of life. So the Buddha come to the conclusion. He said, in this one, he said, Bhikkhu, what is dukkha? He explained the dukkha to a different group of monks, not the 5 aesthetic. He said, it should be said that the 5 aggregate of attachment is what? Is dukkha. See this, he emphasized this for the second time, but to different group of students. Therefore, from this summary, we come down to the conclusion that dukkha is 5 aggregate. Dukkha is 5 aggregate. 5 aggregate is dukkha. Why? Because we are clinging on something that we're not supposed to cling. You cling on the 5 aggregate. And that is why we need to study the concept of the 5 aggregate. Once you understand the concept of 5 aggregate, you should be able to lessen your suffering. You should be able to let go of the 5 aggregate. 5 aggregate sometimes refer to something called I, being, or individual. I, being, or individual is 5 aggregate. So when you talk about 5 aggregate, what exactly that you refer to? หลวงพี่กิติสโก หลวงพี่บีเรนดา หลวงพี่โป้ หลวงพี่นัมบารัส So when someone call your name, do you really exist? Where is Kitisako? Kitisako is here, or is here, or is here, is here. Where exactly is Kitisako? If I cut off your left hand, do you still be called Kitisako? You still, right? If I cut off your right hand, now you have no hand, you still the same person. So if I start cutting off your legs, your head, take out your heart, try to find where is Kitisako, where exactly is that person. Do you think I can find something? So there is no such thing called Kitisako. There is no such thing called หลวงพี่นรงค์ชัย or Virenda or หลวงพี่โป้ It's just the convenient name to call what? To call the set of 5 aggregate. This is one set of 5 aggregate. You one set of 5 aggregate, but I cannot call you, hey, 5 aggregate 1, 5 aggregate 2. It would be confusing. There may be hundreds and thousands of them. But people give you a name, people give me a name, so we can communicate. But in fact, there is no me. There's no you. We will learn about this next session about the 5 aggregate. This is very important concept in Buddhism. Once we understand this concept, it helps us to lessen our suffering in our life. So we learn how to let go. Now we cannot let go. That's why we have so much suffering in life. Why? Because when you start feeling that this is me, it's come with something called this is mine. Me and mine cause us suffering. Why? That is my phone. This is my computer. If you take my computer, I'm not happy. I don't like you. I don't like this feeling. But in fact, because there is no I, there is no me, that's why there is no mine. That's not my computer. Because I doesn't exist. I don't exist. See, it's conceptual. You may feel like, well, this is concept, but I'm not really, follow. Remember, the Buddha see from his divine eye. If you think from your own brain, it will not take you anywhere. You may be able to kind of understand, but it's so difficult for you to let go. Let go your anger, let go your greed, let go, whatever belongs to you. Okay, when here is what caused suffering. Okay, me and mine. If no me and no mine, no clinging, so no suffering. So we'll get to the next concept. So we have gone to several ideas about dukkha, but this time we will go deeper. Dukkha is not just general suffering. It's not just headache, pain in your legs, or stomach ache, or getting hungry. Not just that. Okay. So the first concept of dukkha is general dukkha. It's general dukkha. The Pali used the word dukkha. This one. This is the concept of dukkha. Dukkha refer to general dukkha. Pain, physical pain, grief, lamentation, sad. Okay, that everyone experience in daily life. That's the first category of dukkha. The second one, the dukkha is called viparinama dukkha, or dukkha that due to change. What is due to change? Due to change means dukkha occur when your happiness is gone. Let's say a man and a woman fell in love. They decided to become a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. Okay, and next week the lady come back to him and said, "No, I want to break up with you." And the man was sad. He didn't know what to do. Okay, happiness of love the woman. That woman is gone. She doesn't want to live with him or be his girlfriend no more. Okay, or you are, let's say you surfing internet. You enjoy, reading or watching movie, and all of a sudden there's no electric. The lights are out. You don't have internet connection. So that happiness is gone. This is due to change. Something happened and that pleasurable moment is gone. So these two concepts is okay, understand. But dukkha in the eyes of the Buddha is much deeper than this. It's much deeper. It's the last one. Okay, it's called sankhara dukkha, or dukkha due to condition state. And this is the most important philosophical aspect of dukkha in Buddhism, which not many Buddhists are aware of. What is dukkha? What is suffering? Oh, suffering is headache. Suffering is heartbroken. Yes, it is. But that's not something the Buddha emphasized. The Buddha emphasized on this. So when you study the Four Noble Truths, you must understand that this suffering specifically wants you to understand the concept of something that conditioned state that caused you suffering, which is refer back to the five aggregate. And that is why five aggregate of clinging is suffering, from the summary of the Buddha. That's his summary. And this picture may help you to understand better. This one. What is sankhara dukkha? The dukkha that caused because of conditioned state. So our body and mind, this physical body is a component of five things, right? Body, feeling, perception, thinking, and vinyan, or knowing. Five things is called five aggregate. So these five things put together by condition. Body, feeling, memorizing, thinking, and vinyan, or knowing. These are the five aggregates. The body, this is the physical part, and this is the mind part. Vedana, or feeling, sanya, or memory, sankhara, or thinking, and vinyana, or knowing. So these five things is the five aggregate. So five aggregate is the cause of suffering, and that is why this is the most important philosophical concept of the First Noble Truth, this condition. Keep this in mind. Once you understand this, you can free yourself from suffering. Because general suffering, nothing much we can do, like this guy. in the first level, we born, we get old, and then we die. Nothing you can do about it. But what you can do a lot is the second level, this one. You can protect your mind from not hold on or clinging on something that you're not supposed to. Let's say if that woman come and tell the man that, hey, I don't love you no more, I want to separate. If you were that man, what would you do? How would you deal with that situation? Would you go and kill yourself? Is that how to fix the problem? Because someone don't love you? No. If you understand, oh, okay, people can change their mind. Last week she loved me, this week she doesn't love me no more, and so what? Maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe she's not good enough for me. You should move on with your life, right? Move on with your life. There's so many people are waiting to love you. Just don't kill yourself. So if you have the Dhamma, if you study the Dhamma, if you realize the true nature of life, you wouldn't harm yourself. You would understand, okay, people can change their mind. Feeling is impermanent. Today love, tomorrow no love. This thing is impermanent. Remember concept of Dukkha is impermanent, emptiness, and insubstantiality. This thing is impermanent. Body is impermanent. It changes every day. Feeling, this morning you're feeling good. Now you're feeling okay. In the evening you're unhappy. So feeling change moment by moment. Memory, your memory today and last week not the same. How much you remember from what we learned last session? Maybe a little. And the next 3 years, everything you learned today is gone. Not 3 years, maybe next month. That's why we put in the video, so you can come back and study. Thinking, impermanent. Thinking, human mind think very fast. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. All the time. So this is impermanent. Knowing, your wisdom, your knowledge is impermanent. Whatever impermanent is called Dukkha. It's called suffering. Everything here is impermanent. And why do we cling on something that's impermanent? And because of you doing that, that is why your life is suffering. It's the wrong clinging. And there is a reason why we cling on. Even though we kind of understand the concept by now, but it's still difficult for us to let go. Okay? There is something called ignorance, which we will explain later. Everything has a reason. There is cause and effect. And that is something the Buddha found through his own enlightenment. And he tried to explain for us. But again, we mentioned earlier that everything that the Buddha discovered is very profound. It's very deep. So we cannot take his teaching lightly. So when you study, you need to think deeper. Imagine yourself, sitting right next to the Buddha when he teaches, and try to understand what he means by that. Okay, which is not easy. This green book talk in detail about the Four Noble Truths, very deep, and everything mentioned here come from the Buddhist text. There are references about the thing that I mentioned, Thanajayo Sutra, or where the Buddha talked about the first noble truth, how did he explain the second noble truth, how did he explain the third and the fourth noble truth. Everything is in here in one book in English. And I also encourage you to go back and study on your own as well. We will covering the Four Noble Truths. Today we finished the first one, the Dukkha. And next time we will cover the 5 aggregates. And then the third noble truth and the fourth noble truth. Okay? Again, Four Noble Truths, it's simple, but it's not easy. I don't want you to take it lightly. Okay, I know there are 4 of them, Lung Pi. Suffering, cause of suffering, ending suffering, and the Eightfold Path. I remember. It's not just that. Because every day you encounter some form of suffering. And that means you need to understand the concept of Four Noble Truths, how it works. So you can free yourself from daily suffering. Today's concept, I believe you have received very important information and very crucial concept about suffering. And if you remember nothing, okay, take this with you. Clinging on the 5 aggregates, okay, is Dukkha. And dukkha, what the Buddha wants us to understand is dukkha that happen by condition. Okay, condition. And when we go to the second noble truth, we will understand more about what exactly that cause us suffering. What exactly that cause us to feel like, well, I am exist. To feel like this is me and this is mine. There is a cause for this. Okay, which we will covering when we get to the second noble truth. Okay, in summary, okay, dukkha. What the Buddha tried to explain that dukkha in the Four Noble Truths means dukkha that caused by the second noble truth, which is called tanha or craving. That's what he wants to emphasize. Dukkha that caused by condition or that caused by something called the tanha. We will get to that later. And the second one, bringing on the attachment of the five aggregate is dukkha. This one. This is five aggregate: body, feeling, memory, thinking, and knowledge. Clinging on this take us to suffering or dukkha. And the last one, if you want to be free from suffering, you need to find a way to detach yourself from these five aggregate, which the Buddha point us the way to follow the noble Eightfold Path. Okay, that's it. We're done for today. อนุโมทนาครับสาธุ